What is up, everybody? Keith, aka Gator Guy 231, here to break down Saturday's 3-game, of course, stagger start EPL slate. Hope you all had a good week of Champions League and any other DFS that you're playing. Hopefully you're playing a lot of DFS soccer and continue to grow this community. I'm looking forward to this 3-gamer, and honestly, let me just kind of jump right into it. A big reason I think I'm still looking forward to it is that I feel like in years past with Manchester City, we always got them as like the late game. And it was always like, okay, who's going to start up top? Like, I'm going to have to plan for A and B and then have to switch my utility, all this stuff. But this is now the second straight week that we've had City as a massive favorite and they're the first game. So we kind of know the important pieces and kind of how to orient our lineups, and we don't have to sweat. And in a lot of ways, this slate is probably going to be decided by noon. City is close to a minus 800 favorite when I just looked a couple minutes ago. I think they opened up closer to minus 1,000. So, look, they are expected to crush Fulham, who, even last week in their surprise result versus Leicester, it's not like they were, the controlling possession, not allowing Leicester opportunities. Leicester just kind of botched, opportunity after opportunity. Kind of, in a lot of ways, I think Brendan Rodgers screwed up by not starting Harvey Barnes and giving them the attack that they needed. But we don't have to, I think, worry about Fulham really threatening City here. They're just going to sit probably very, very much into a low block. Maybe look for 1 to 2 opportunities to counter City, and City should just onslaught them from the get-go. I think this is what's going to happen. I think at minimum, you are at 4 City players, and you could easily make the argument that you could go up to 6. They're that big of a favorite, and I think that it's not just about what a big favorite City is. It's as much about what else you want to do. Like Manchester United, okay, they have 2 players in DFS we like to roster, right? Alex Telles and Bruno Fernandes. But because of City being such an overwhelming favorite, do you really want to give up Riyad Mahrez and his upside? Or, let's say that you decide that you don't want to do Mahrez and you want to decide that you want to do Jesus. Do you really want to give up extra City exposure to go get Bruno Fernandes, especially now that Bruno Fernandes no longer has a set monopoly? We've seen Alex Telles eat drastically into Bruno Fernandes's set share. And not to mention, West Ham's not an awful team. So this isn't like, a phenomenal Bruno Fernandes spot. So, I think in a lot of ways, this slate is not so much about, are you going to be able to jam in KDB and Bruno, but are you going to, it's really going to be what City players that you're going to target. So here's what I think most people are going to do. And let's start with City. I've already been talking about them, but that's going to be the game that matters. So, everybody is, first lock is going to be Kevin De Bruyne. I think there's actually an interest that I have. This is going to be maybe a little bit contrarian, at potentially maybe fading KDB in a GPP line or two, just knowing how owned he will be. You actually look back at last week versus Burnley. He had 1 cross. I think what was 2 shots on target. Obviously, he got an assist. Here's the thing. KDB doesn't need 12 crosses to be effective. His passing range and his vision is so elite that it's not just crosses that are leading to scoring opportunities. It's a lot of these through passes. But there is a chance that if he's just the pass that leads to the pass that gets the goal, and that Mahrez is stealing sets, he could come up with, let's say, 13 to 14 DK, which is a great floor game, but not have the ceiling to win you a GPP. And instead, you could go Mahrez plus Jesus plus, let's say, Ferran Torres. Then maybe it's Bruno, or maybe you go to somewhere else, and that could, maybe put you off the chalk. So I think that's something interesting in GPP. But in cash, you're locking KDB. You're likely, with Mahrez sitting out midweek, I think, Pep already kind of showed his card that Mahrez will be starting. I think those 2 are probably the first 2 in most people's lineups. Ben Mendy was awesome last weekend and awesome the week before in the Champions League game. So I think he's probably earned his left back spot back, and at 4,500 he's a little cheap for another City piece. So I think a lot of people are going to go those three to start out, and then I think a lot will depend on who is playing that left wing, left mid spot for City. So both Ferran Torres and Raheem Sterling started midweek, as well as Phil Foden. My gut is that it's going to be Ferran Torres. I think that Pep spent a ton of money on him in the offseason. I think that he likes Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres is, one of the more up-and-coming players in the world, young players in the world. Again, like I mentioned this last week, but the guy scored 3 goals versus Germany in the international break. So he's no joke of a player. And, from a DFS perspective, I want him to start because he's, in my opinion, still underpriced at 6,200. But if he doesn't, maybe, I'm actually going to change my tune here. Maybe I actually want Raheem Sterling to start in the left wing. Like, this is a guy that this time last year, was $10,000 plus or 10,000 plus, DK salary. Now we get him for what? It's like 7,100 in a great spot for him to get right, and that would fill the second forward spot. So I think most people, that fourth play is going to be whoever starts at that left mid, left wing spot, with the pivot being, depending on how you build your lineup and whether you want to pay for Alex Telles, being, hey, you could just take Gabriel Jesus up top. Obviously, he's going to be one of the more likely guys to score. Fills the forward spot. And look, you got most of those goal notifications covered. So I think that's really the slate. It's just the City pieces you grab. And really, I kind of put on the cover, if you see, it's, Sterling, Mahrez, and Jesus. Which two of those 3 guys are you going to roster to make up your builds? From there, it's just going to be, there's nobody else in the City that's a must play. I don't think it's an Ederson slate. I think that with all the people to pay up, we need to pay down at goalie. But I'm never going to be paying over $5,000 for Kyle Walker. Assists or goal randomness be damned. It's just not something that I'm going to do. Rodrigo in the middle, is fine for a punt. Again, like I think when you do have a team that you expect to play score 4 or 5 goals, there is some equity. Excuse me. On maybe just that one pass that it's playing out from the back, and Rodrigo does a 20-yard pass, and Ferran Torres or Riyad Mahrez or KDB or whoever goes on an 60-yard run for a goal. Yeah, Rodrigo didn't cause it to happen, but he still gets the assist in the box score, and that's 70K, right? 6 for the assist, 1 for the shot assist. So, and then at that price tag, he's smashing value. So, I always think that we probably are better off taking a player like him versus Declan Rice, who's, much less likely to score. Maybe Declan Rice has a little bit more in open play, but, that little bit more that you're getting probably does not outweigh the opportunity cost that, a team scoring as many goals as City's going to do gives you. So, something like him's fine. Gundogan, never a favorite of mine, but he's fine too. And I think that's just how you handle City. You just look who's they're starting. You probably try to grab as much of that attacking upside as you can, and fill out from there. Fulham side of things, I do want to bring up one play, and there is an argument to be made that you could, and maybe even should consider Ivan Cavaleiro. So, he took the PK last weekend, or what was it, Monday actually. He's 3,500, forward eligible, used to take sets. I wouldn't close the door completely on the set pieces, but we saw Harrison Reed take last week. Before that it was Tom Kearney, and then even before that it was Cavaleiro. So I don't think the door is completely closed on him taking the 1 to 2 corners maybe Fulham has. But look, he's playing a striker. City always, is going to be focusing on the offensive side of the pitch. It's going to be committing numbers forward. There is going to be 1 to 2 opportunities that Fulham has to score. Despite how lopsided the game is going to be, they're still going to have a few opportunities. And if he converts one at 3,500, you're good to go, and maybe you pay up elsewhere. So I think that'll be an interesting play, but that's probably it on Fulham for me. Maybe if you want to punt with Harrison Reed, it's fine, but I don't care that he has corners. here because, you know, I'm not playing a Fulham piece versus City for corners. You're playing them for the goal upside. All right. I know that was long. I'm going to spend a lot less time on the next two because I don't think that there's many plays that we're going to go to. So, you know, we're going to next talk about United versus West Ham. I was actually planning to talk up Mikel Antonio as maybe a really interesting play if he was getting fitness back. But he already got ruled out. So, you know, Haller is significantly more expensive. He's not going to be in play. Bowen's not in play. Look, I just don't think West Ham's really in play here. I do want to bring up a note about West Ham before we go to United. I was going to come on like, so first off, West Ham is not bad, all right? They drew versus City. They, you know, lost 2-1 versus Liverpool, but, you know, were in that game until I think it was like Jota scored in the 82nd minute or something like that. But in both games, they were getting pummeled. So while I don't think that they're bad, they're also not like going to do like a 50-50 possession with United. United still should be on the front foot a decent amount. So I don't really feel like anybody on West Ham is somebody like I want to go out of my way to play. Maybe Kufal. I saw it was like 4,400. If I landed on him, that wouldn't be bad. He's a pretty active tackler and things too. But I just don't think West Ham's where we want to go. Now, United, I think Alex Telles is very, very worth almost like core consideration for your lineups. He's taking half the sets for United, especially in games. I talked about this, I think the last two United slates, but especially in games that we're going to be leaning towards United having possession. He opens up a creative outlet that they have not had out from the left in a while. Rashford's always going to tuck in, giving Telles good amount of crossing opportunities. So I think he's the most cash viable United player. Obviously, it's normally Bruno, but it's just a price thing for Bruno. If you want, here's the route to getting Bruno, is you play Caballero. So if you're going to play Bruno, you're playing Caballero for the first game and taking that $3,500, dart and your forward spot, which I don't think is bad. But that's the way to get Bruno. I don't know if you need it. Like I said, Telles does hurt Bruno from the set piece perspective. So you're really doing more Bruno doing like open play things, which he's obviously always a very, very willing and active shooter, great passer, all these things. But look, you go, okay, Bruno has a phenomenal floor. Yes, I will give it to you. His floor is still probably 12 to 15 DK. But when he had set Monopoly, it was 15 to 20. At 12 to 15 DK, you go, is he worth sacrificing Riyad Mahrez? Or is he worth sacrificing Gabby Jesus? Or whichever City stud you don't play because you're playing Bruno Fernandes, was he worth it? And that's going to decide it for you. So that's the decision that you have to make. I can't make for you. But, if you think that Mahrez scores 2 or Jesus scores 2 or that those guys, there's no way that they're not going to get 20 DK, then you play them. But if you think that, maybe City lets down or it's all going to go through KDB and Torres or whatever, then maybe there's your case to play Bruno. The rest of United is all GPP for me, and, in any slate, really, they should be GPP. Cavani, Rashford, honestly, I think they need to sit Martial and maybe throw Mata in there after Martial's just horrid game versus PSG. But, if Martial started, he would actually be an interesting price play under 6K, forward eligible. Maybe they put in Mason Greenwood, which is even cheaper. Greenwood did sub at half versus Southampton for Cavani, who really saved them. But, I think that was partly on Solskjaer for putting Greenwood in kind of an unnatural position. I think he's been playing so much more on the right that to throw him up top with Rashford in that game was maybe not that fair. And if I'm wrong there, I didn't get a chance to watch. I was just looking at the formation. But, 5,300 for Greenwood here being forward eligible would actually be kind of nice. All right. I think that's good enough for that game. Final game, Chelsea versus Leeds. So I'll just say this. Chelsea is not going to go get any ownership here. Almost everybody is going to spend their money on City or Bruno Fernandes. So the likes of Werner, Ziyech, Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, all these guys are not owned. So Chelsea, first off, is a phenomenal GPP play on this slate. And look, it's versus Leeds. Leeds is a fun team, but they are very, very open. So Chelsea you could very easily see a scenario where Chelsea scores multiple goals, in the first half, and all of a sudden you've now overcome the Mahrez 14-point game with your Timo Werner for $2,200 cheaper, and at a fourth of the ownership, or you decide to play a Tammy Abraham YOLO goal or something like that. Those guys aren't going to be owned, so I really like Chelsea for GPP. I'm definitely going to be putting in a Chelsea stack as part of my lineups, and just seeing maybe if I can fit like a cheaper City piece, maybe like a Torres and KDB with them. That's something that's really, really interesting to me. But from a floor perspective, Chelsea kind of sucks. Reece James at this point is probably their best floor play. It's like James, Ziyech, and Mount are the only guys with actual floors. Werner is not shooting like he did at Leipzig. Abraham's always going to be goal or bust. Then Ben Chilwell is still being priced like he has set pieces, when in actuality Reece James is a better DFS player than him when they don't have sets. Majority of the sets are going to Mason Mount and Ziyech right now. So, but I don't think that Chelsea sets are that great or anything to change your lineup on. Like, I'm not going to take a Chelsea floor piece over City in cash. Like, I will just risk, City not scoring 4 goals. Or I said that wrong. I'm just going to go with City to onslaught Fulham versus going Mason Mount and then gouging my eyes out when it's halftime and he has 1 shot off target, 2 crosses, and 2 fouls. Like, that just sounds like torture. Like, it's already going to be bad enough that my showdowns lineups are ruined by Mason Mount. I don't want my classics to be too. So that's just kind of my perspective on Chelsea. On Leeds, look, as fun as Leeds are, I've said this for a while, I really don't like them for DFS. So much has to be open play value. They do so many different things with their formations. It's hard to track down. We saw Calvin Phillips not really being on set pieces. Is it going to be Harrison? Is it going to be Klitsch? Is Phillips going to go back? You don't know. And then on top of all this, Chelsea's a good team. And I don't know how Leeds is going to set up well. It seems like Leeds is losing a little bit of steam right now. So yeah, I don't think I really want to save any spots for Leeds either. If you were going to tell me Rodrigo Moreno was going to start, he'd be a really interesting second forward at sub 5K. I'd be okay with that, but the rest of their prices and where they're at doesn't really make me want to save a roster spot for them. And then I don't think there's great Chelsea pivots off of them if you do and your guy's not in. So I just think this last game is just going to go very, very overlooked for the main slate. And again, how I started this off, in a lot of ways, the slate is going to be decided by noon and by what your city pieces do. So here's me wishing that you pick the right city pieces, that they come through for you, and that you have a great Saturday. I really do appreciate everybody's watching and all your support for all these videos. If you haven't already, bottom right of the screen, please just hit that subscribe button. Give us a like, comment. I'm glad to answer any questions that I can before lineups come out. Again, if you ask afterwards, very unlikely to get them answered, as I am working with FSI subscribers on getting their questions answered. Guys, thank you all so much for watching once again. And with that, we say, see ya!